morning. Let me paint a picture for you. It's 6 a.m. You're not out of bed yet, but you're not asleep either. You're laying there running through everything that didn't get resolved yesterday, the decision that you kind of left hanging, the email you started that's sitting in your drafts, that's probably sitting in with the other 44 drafts that are unfinished, that are sitting in the folder, the tension in your team that you need to address, but you haven't quite worked out how yet. Before you've had a single thought of your own, your head is already full. You're already feeling a little bit behind the day. About you, you're capable, you're experienced, you created a business from nothing, but there's this constant low-level hum of like unfinished stuff. It follows you everywhere. So it's on when you're sitting on the sofa into the evening, you might have a laptop on your lap while you're watching TV. It might even invade your dreams. You've got the skill, you've got the vision, you've got the ambition, you started the business. What you don't have is space to properly think. If any of this sounds familiar, then this whole series, I think, is for you. I'm Annette Corbett. I'm a thinking partner for women founders who have become the bottleneck in their own business. And this is the thinking partner, as you can see from the title. And it's going to be a series exploring the evidence behind what happens when we don't give ourselves space to think, and also what becomes possible when we do. If you're not sure what a thinking partner is, don't worry, we'll get to that. I kind of made it up. I will explain later. I thought I would start by telling you a little bit about how I got here. I'm not going to go into like a full CV, but it feels important to share because I noticed only relatively recently that there is a thread that runs through my entire career that I just hadn't really recognized. If we go pretty far back, I spent over a decade as a legal PA in international law firms supporting stressed out senior partners. Then nearly 20 years in the arts as a producer, fundraiser, strategist, quite a generalist, but working in organizations of different scales, from like big arts centers right down to really small founder-led organizations and freelancers. Two very different worlds, but a similar function in both of them. I was a person sitting at the center of complexity, holding the thread, synthesizing what was happening across everything, making sure that things moved forwards under pressure. And then when I eventually moved into working for myself, primarily as a coach and facilitator, over time, I started to notice something that kept coming up all the time. That the most useful thing I was doing for people wasn't necessarily the formal coaching as such, even though I still totally love doing that work. It was more the kind of conversations alongside it. Those, oh, can I just think this thing through with you type moments. The untangling, the periods where I can only describe myself as working like a second brain for someone. And that's when I realized that's what I've always done. I just finally figured out a decent job title for it. It was what I was seeing across those worlds and consistently whenever I work with senior leaders, with founders, with people who are ambitious, who care about what it is they're creating. Like I said, you're not struggling because you lack capability or vision or ambition or skills or knowledge. You read the books, you've done the podcasts, you've done the training. You have all of that in abundance. You're struggling because somewhere along the way through the growth and the taking on more people and more responsibility and more complexity, you've become that point that everything returns to. That's why I describe myself as supporting people who have become the bottleneck in their business. Every decision lands on your desk. Every priority competes for the same attention. Everyone comes to you for answers on every bloody thing. So the strategic thinking, the vision stuff, the stuff that would actually move your business forward to the next level that you can kind of see, but you can't quite reach. It keeps getting pushed to the edges into early mornings, late nights, weekends, all that time that you hope to actually have a life. Because let's face it, that's probably part of the reason you created a business of your own in the first place, is that autonomy, that freedom you were hoping to find when you were your own boss. And so things accumulate. Decisions that haven't quite been made, projects waiting for your input, that constant low-level hum of unfinished stuff that never quite goes away. I bet more than once you've used the phrase, "I can't even hear myself think." That's more accurate than you realize. And that and all the stuff around it is why you're feeling stuck and knackered and overwhelmed. And that's kind of what's holding your business back from that next level. That's what I want to talk about. So what is a thinking partner? I did promise I would come to that. Um, I think I made it up as a job title. I may have heard it in other places, I'm not sure. But for me, the way I see it, a thinking partner is not about like coaching in the traditional sense. It's not therapy. It's not strategic consulting. Although, like, full disclosure, I do have experience in all three, which I think really helps. It's something distinct from all of them. Or perhaps it's actually a combination of all of them. It's the person who thinks alongside you. It's that second brain, like I said. When your head is full, when there are decisions circling around, priorities competing, when it's all routing through you, a thinking partner sits in the middle of you, sits in the middle of it with you. They listen, they synthesize, they spot the patterns and the gaps, they reflect back what's actually there rather than what the noise is kind of telling you is there. They find the important stuff. It's not about telling you what to do. It's about helping you think clearly enough to know yourself. Thank you, Erin. I have to put this on screen because I love it when people say, hey, because it feels new. It feels new to me. So I'm delighted when it actually lands. Thank you so much for your comment. I don't think this is a nice to have. I was saying that my mission is to make having a thinking partner as common and as understood as having an accountant as a founder, so that you're not trying to build the business and shedding all the blood, sweat and tears entirely on your own to build this empire. Because I say, I don't think it's a luxury or an indulgence, or it shouldn't be. There is significant evidence that explains why thinking with someone else works better than thinking on your own. I'm sure it's why co-working works too, which is something I really love to look up more of the science about. And there's evidence behind why creating consistent space to think changes everything for your decision making, for your clarity, for your business, and actually for your health and well-being too, which is definitely something we're going to explore. And that's exactly what I'm going to talk about in this series. I'm so serious about it that unlike my usual videos where I have an idea and kind of riff off it, I actually have notes because I don't want to miss anything important, which is probably why you can see my eyes going off to my little bullet points on the side of the screen. But as I say, that's why I'm making this series, because I kept finding myself in these conversations where founders would describe what was happening for them, that sort of decision backlog and that mental overload and the feeling of being like busy but not clear, and coming to me for like strategic fixes or like productivity hacks. And I was like, nah, that's not quite right. There's something missing there. And we'd talk about what was going on for them. And they'd nod along and they say, yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. And they say, but isn't that just how it is about running a business? Isn't that just how it feels? And I kept thinking, no, it doesn't have to be. Because as I say, there is actual science. There's real evidence that explains exactly why it feels the way it does and why doing the things we think we need to do actually goes against what's going to help us, and why your thinking gets stuck, what chronic overwhelm does to your brain, to your body, which, as I said, we'll definitely be getting into, and why thinking with someone else works better than thinking entirely alone. Also, what becomes possible when you do actually create the space. Because I don't want it to all be about what's going wrong. I want to show you what can happen when it goes right. And Erin, when you do have that stillness and that commitment and that time. So that's what I'm going to talk about. Every Wednesday morning, I'll be exploring one piece of that. If I can't come live, I make sure that I will pre-record something for you if I'm somewhere else. And I'm going to talk about it in a way that is useful and grounded rather than abstract. Really exploring what's really going on for you and hopefully sharing some tips that will help you to move out of that stuckness, that overwhelm of not having space to think. Some of it might surprise you, but I have a feeling that a lot of it is going to be like ridiculously obvious once you've heard it. And also, I think a lot of it will probably help you feel considerably less alone in what you're experiencing. You're not doing something wrong. This is what's actually going on. And hopefully, all of it will help you find a better way to lead in your business and beyond it. So I'll be here every Wednesday morning, same time, same place. If any of what I've shared today resonates, if the founder I described at the start sounds uncomfortably familiar, I'd love to hear from you. Drop me a DM. I'm always happy to have a conversation. And if you just want to follow along and see where this goes, pick up some tips, some information on the way, some useful science bits that you hopefully you'll enjoy, then you're very welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for watching. And I will see you next Wednesday. Bye.